Recording. All right, hello everybody. Thanks for joining our monthly Eloqua user group meeting. Today is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2022. In case you didn't know, happy St. Patrick's Day. And I'm your host, Karen Pendler, KP. Most of you know me. I've been in the marketing space for the last 17 years, 2 years before that in sales support at Under Armour. And in my marketing career, the entire time, Eloqua has been a part of it. The first company I worked for in Annapolis, Maryland had Eloqua. So I started using it there, not a lot. And then the second company is where I actually had to dive in and was an Eloqua admin. And the CMO I worked for was on the board of Eloqua at that time. This was back in like 2008, 2009. So anyways, I've learned using Eloqua and the old version of it from the marketer standpoint, and then flipping over to the last 13 years as a consultant, working with a lot of different companies. Actually, quite a few of you here I've worked with in some capacity, either as a colleague or as your consultant. So I appreciate you being here, and we're gonna get through 3 really good topics today. Let me move on here on my slide. Don't worry, not everything else in this will be green, but Kermit and I would like to start with a few relevant reminders. So I'll do that on the next slide. And then from Oracle, Otilia Antipa is going to go through a high demand topic here, Eloqua AutoOpens. So she's going to spend about 15 minutes on that. And then actually this has been adjusted. So second, Kelly's going to go. I'm sorry, I didn't update the slide. We had a last minute tweak. Kelly Newton from our team. She's one of our Eloqua consultants. She also used to work at Oracle. So you might be thinking, wait a minute, isn't she on the Oracle support team? She was. But she's going to talk to us about Eloqua's strict mode website visitor tracking, when to use it, why, show you some sample JavaScript code. So you can basically walk away if you need to do it. You'll know that you need to do it for sure by learning about it, and then have instructions for how to go about doing so. And then we're going to end with Lisa Milligan on our team. She's one of our longtime senior Eloqua consultants. She was one of my mentors when I first started consulting. And I think of her as a dear friend as well. So she's going to go through another topic. This kind of ties off from last week. We talked about, gosh, I can't remember what it was. It related to this. She's going to talk about how to and why even check to see if your Eloqua is using secure app and image domains. If you don't even know what the heck those are, a lot of people usually don't. Most users don't, because it's something that typically is supposed to be set up during your Eloqua implementation. So this is something that we're like, please check, make sure your Eloqua has secure image domains and app domains. She'll explain again what they are and why and how to check them and what to do if they're not set up as secure. And then we'll open it up if we have time for questions and for if anybody wants to share a tip. So if you have something like where you do want to share a tip, raise your hand and we'll keep an eye out for it. That's the virtual way here to say, hey, I want to talk. And that way I'll unmute your mic and you can ask your question or share your tip towards the end here. We do want to ask, because we have a packed agenda today, to just put your questions into the Q&A, and each presenter is going to monitor it and answer as best as they can throughout the webinar. And if we have time at the end, you know, if a question makes more sense, like for Otilia to answer live, then she'll aim to do so. If your question's not answered, please don't fret. I try to do a good job of making sure I look through the Q&A after the webinar. And if something is not answered, I will individually follow up with you. So you don't walk away like, well, shoot, I asked a question and what they ignore me for. No hard feelings, we will get to it. But I have a feeling with today's topics, we're gonna have quite a few questions. So that's why I'm digging in on that one. All right, let me see, there's actually a chat right now. Okay, oh, nice, thanks, Kelly, 4-leaf clover. Good luck with everything in life. Some relevant reminders. I always try to do this to help you guys stay in the Eloqua know. The big topic for today, it's not really that big because it's not here yet, but the next Eloqua release called 22B will be starting in May. You can see the schedule there in the gray table. This has been published on Topliners by the Oracle product management team. There will eventually be a webinar that they do for an hour to go into great detail about the new features, any fixes, stuff like that. So keep an eye out. It probably won't be until like later in April or closer to that time frame. And we'll try to get somebody from the Oracle product management team to hopefully present again about it in this group. So if you missed their webinar, you can always watch the recording, but they usually join like a month after the release is out to update us here in this setting. if you want to keep an eye on it, so I'll just click on this and see if it'll work. How fancy, there we go. So the Eloqua Release Center, if you haven't ever seen it, it's on the Eloqua user community called Topliners. You can see it there in the URL. It's not really up here anymore, but there you go. Welcome to Topliners. So the Release Center, it gives details about the 22A release, which just happened in February, about a month ago. And they always give a nice bulleted list of the highlights, not everything that happened in that release, but the highlights. So anyway, you can take a peek there if you did not get the skinny on the last release that's now live in your Eloqua. Everybody's instance is now live with these changes. When you hear somebody say Eloqua, database, system, environment, it's all typically synonymous. It's usually the same thing. Platform, that means your Eloqua you're logging into. So if we're like, well, which pod is your Eloqua instance on? Well, then if you know you're on pod 1, you can trace what the timing is of when your Eloqua was last updated. You don't have to opt in for your Eloqua to be updated. It happens automatically. You actually can't say like, don't update our Eloqua. We don't want those new features and those bug fixes. That's SaaS technology. Like Eloqua doesn't work that way. It's automatically done for you, thankfully by Oracle, to keep Eloqua moving along and new features coming out and bug fixes and all that fun stuff. So this is where I just literally did a screenshot of the 22B release. So eventually you're going to start to see information. There'll be a full page for the 22, where is it up here? Right now it's the 22A release, entire page that goes into more detail. That'll be replaced eventually by 22B. So just to keep an eye out. I guess I really didn't need to click the link here. It was already clicked. A couple more reminders. If you are regular at this user group meeting, you can tune me out for a minute. This is the same stuff. So if you are not on Topliners, where I just was in a very specific section for product releases, but there are other cool things there where you can sign up to get notified about product announcements. So if there's something innovative that's coming to Eloqua that Oracle wants to communicate to the user community about, you'll get that announcement. We've already talked about the new release dates being scheduled. Also, you can get an email notification when there's a product roadmap update being shared or presented by Oracle. And that's, I think the last one was in December. So it's definitely highly encouraged if you're an Eloqua user to join the user community, AKA Topliners. Within Topliners, it's the Eloqua Insider group. There's different groups for the Oracle marketing, different products, and hence Eloqua being the one we want you to pay attention to. I've been asked over the years, where can I get free Eloqua training, or where can my colleague get free Eloqua training, or my boss, whoever. The Help Center has awesome, some of them are awesome, I guess that's debatable, but there's good videos there. They host them on YouTube. So you can just go to the YouTube channel if you wish and watch the Eloqua videos. And they're broken down in bite-sized chunks about specific topics. So it's definitely improved over the years. We support Pardot, Marketo, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, Tableau at Sojourn, our agency does. And I will say that Eloqua Help Center and the videos they've done and like the organization of it is, I think, the best out of all the vendors out there that Eloqua competes with. So I appreciate the Oracle product team has been on it. It wasn't like that always. So thank you guys for making it better. And then if you've missed any of these Eloqua user group meetings, or if you have to leave today early, no worries. We send you the recording always if you register or attend, either way. And then also the past recordings are on our website, so you can just view them anytime. We only went back, I think, like a year and a half. So they're not all there from over 2 years of doing this virtual Eloqua user group meeting, but it does go back to August 2020. So if you want to reminisce about the pandemic, maybe you can go back in time there and take a look. And then let's go back. You guys don't need to watch me check my email. All right. And then the last thing is, being a Eloqua user when I was in my early 20s, I was like, okay, I'm starting to learn Eloqua. How can I learn like marketing strategies and other technologies that relate to Eloqua, like other marketing tech, or MarTech people call it? ClickZ is one of the best things I have found. They're a company that basically keeps you up to date on those two things. And they have a daily newsletter you can subscribe to. So I don't get paid by them to say this or anything like that. Sojourn doesn't. They just have been a helpful resource for me to up my game with marketing strategies and just stay in the know there. So since this webinar is not what that's about, I wanted to give you just an idea of another place to get that info. I mean, there's so many different agencies and companies out there that provide similar information, Gartner, Forrester. These guys, I like it. They're not paid by anybody, to my knowledge, to share what they're sharing like some other companies. So it's just really good info. All right, enough from me. Without further ado, I'd like to hand the mic to Otilia. Again, she's from the Oracle product management team and is going to talk to us about Eloqua email opens. I think almost everybody from the last Eloqua user group meeting in February said we need more info. So here you go, Otilia. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, Karen, and hello, everyone. Let me start out by sharing my screen, and then we'll get started.
Looks great.
All right. Perfect. So my name is Otilia Antipa, and I am a principal product manager at Oracle. I manage the reporting and analytics side of Eloqua, and I've been with Oracle for just around 4 years. Although I've definitely worn a couple different hats. I started as a technical account manager. I then moved over to the consulting team, spent a couple years there, and as of last October, moved over to the product team. So very excited to be here today and talk to you a little bit more about AutoOpens. Fair warning, I'm going to be saying the word opens a ridiculous amount of times, so bear with me. And before I jump in, I do want to share our safe harbor statement. So a lot of the information I'll be covering has already been part of the 22A release, but there are some forward-looking items. So I do want to call out our safe harbor statement and just a reminder that anything covered today is intended to give general product direction and provide or intended to provide informational or for informational purposes. All right, so let's talk about AutoOpens. I briefly wanted to cover what was introduced with the 22A release. For some of you, this might be a refresher. For some of you, this might be new. So in February with the 22A release, we did announce a new metric called AutoOpens, which is what we're here to talk about today. This is a metric that you'll find under the email opens subject area. And AutoOpens are essentially email opens that have been detected as being opened by a scanning or privacy tool or as a result of the Apple Mail privacy changes. Now, AutoOpens are not included in your total opens or any associated open rates. So I want to make sure that I really highlight this. In other words, if you're looking at your total opens or unique opens, those auto opens that we're identifying and classifying have already been filtered out and removed. Additionally, no action is required from customers to enable this. So you should already see auto opens as part of the metrics within the email open subject area. And lastly, want to call this out because I did see a couple questions on top liners around this. Auto opens will only be captured after the 22A release. So unfortunately, we don't have historical information on auto opens, but anything after the 22A release moving forward will mean that you have auto opens captured within your instance. Okay, so now that we've discussed what auto opens are, I do want to walk you through how you can access them and how you can leverage them in your own reporting. Like I mentioned earlier, auto opens are part of the email open subject area, so they're not natively added to your reports as a separate column. This means that you do need to create a new analysis to pull in auto opens, and I think most people are familiar with the analyzer license, but I do just want to give a quick reminder that analyzer licenses are free and you do need an analyzer license to create a new analysis. So again, if I'm creating a report, I'll only be able to do that by having an analyzer license assigned to me. To walk you through a couple quick steps here. So once you're within the Insight landing page, so this is your main home screen from Insight. If you do have that license, you'll see this new drop down here. From there, you can select analysis. This will prompt you to select the email open subject area. And then from there, you're taken to the report builder. And this is where you can drag and drop or double click the attributes and metrics that you'd like to add to your report. In this case, you would pull in AutoOpens to build your report. So my favorite question, and I think this was where there was a little bit of clarification that was needed. So with the release of Apple Mail Privacy in September by Apple Mail, we put a lot of focus on how we're tracking email opens in order for us to identify these auto opens, not only by Apple Mail, but also by email scanners and privacy tools. And so we essentially classify auto opens by looking at the information we receive in the user agent string, which leads to the next question. What is a user agent string? The user agent string is a set of parameters, code that we receive back from Apple or these email scanners. And we use that to classify auto opens and record them within your instance. Segue into the next question, which is, what are email scanner tools and how do they differ, if they differ at all, from how we classify Apple Mail auto opens? And these are essentially tools that businesses implement to scan their emails and make sure that they are safe. So these tools will actually open your emails or click or assess the links, and they're looking for malicious content. And although this is great for security reasons and it protects the end users, actually a lot of you on this call might already have them in place within your own organizations. It does mean that, similar to Apple Mail and the privacy changes that we saw there, it can be difficult to identify a true open. So with that, we wanted to make sure that we were capturing auto opens that occur due to the Apple Mail changes, as well as the scanner and privacy tools. Now, the caveat here between scanners and privacy tools compared to Apple Mail is that with Apple Mail, we know what the user agent string is. So we know it's Mozilla 5.0. When we get that return, we can classify the auto open. With scanner tools, though, there are quite a number of different user agent strings that we need to look up. And I call this out because this can cause a delay of 5 to 15 minutes before that user agent is identified and recorded to your site. Now, once that user agent string is known, moving forward, anytime you do have that user agent string returned, it will already be known and we can classify that accordingly. Now, I've seen this question too, and I think it's really important to call out because we are able to identify a true open from Apple Mail, meaning that the user is actually opening the email. And this is done when we have a click through. So a user clicking through to your email means that we can presume that open. And I think this speaks to the challenges of how reliable open metrics are. I think there is some controversy about, are open rates dead? And I'll touch on that near the end. But we do obviously see more of a trend towards these stricter privacy controls. So with that said, with Apple Mail, we do need to have that click through in order to presume that open from the actual user. I also wanted to share with you some 3 key takeaways from really all the questions that I saw, and really just giving a recommendation on how to leverage auto opens. And the first being that auto opens are not an indicator of engagement. So in other words, auto opens are simply telling us how many emails were opened by a scanning tool or as a result of the Apple privacy changes. Now, I've seen people reach out and say, Otilia, do you have any recommendations on engagement campaigns for those that have a high number of auto opens? And this is where I think the question is a bit misdirected, because these auto opens are simply telling us that, again, they've been opened by a bot, and not necessarily giving us an indicator of engagement, but more so of the impact of these bot opens or the AutoOpens coming from Apple Mail. And secondly, here is to develop a broad or broader, depending on your business and how you're doing your analysis, developing a broader set of performance metrics. And again, I've seen that debate over whether open metrics are dead. I think as a former analyst myself, I know that there's quite a lot of attention internally in companies that can be drawn towards opens. And again, I think there is definitely a time and place for open rates and their utility in your analysis. But as we've seen, there is this more of a shift towards stricter privacy controls where these open rates become less reliable. So although I think open rates are still important and have utility, I do encourage you to go beyond those open metrics and look at those bottom of the funnel metrics, such as clicks and conversions, where you can make more informed decisions on your campaigns. Lastly, this was an interesting call out to me. So AutoOpens can help better understand email validation. Sometimes you have those metrics that are just good to know, but they're not necessarily actionable. So I wanted to give you a takeaway where AutoOpens are actionable and you can take some steps around them. So it's important to note here that Apple will only generate AutoOpens for valid email addresses. And this means that if you're getting an AutoOpen, you have a valid email address. And this can give you that additional information when looking at list hygiene or database cleanliness. And it really gives you additional information to supplement your data when looking at list hygiene. All right, so that was it for the AutoOpens portion. I hope it's giving you some information to take away or answer some of your questions. I'll definitely jump into the chat and answer a couple of questions. I do want to call out again, I know Karen shared this as well, but there's a lot of great information on AutoOpens. We have a top liners post dedicated specifically to AutoOpens. A lot of the questions there were used to build a presentation today. So I definitely encourage you guys to check that out. That's it for me. Back to you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is good. I know I learned a couple of things here to kind of smooth things out for me because some of it was a little bit murky, but thank you for going through that. There are two questions. There's one in the Q&A from Ryan, and then there's one in the chat from Carmen. So if you can take a peek at those. And then I'm going to take over the screen share really quick. We're going to do a little baton handoff. There's my email. Isn't that exciting? So our next topic, let me get my Zoom stuff out of the way, the chat and the Q&A. So thank you again, Otilia. I appreciate you going through that and for helping with the questions. So Kelly, again, she's a Sojourner here for over a year, right, Kelly? I think you hit your year mark like a month or two ago.
Yeah, just when we transitioned to the new year, 2022.
Yep, that's
joined over the
right.
holidays.
Yep. And you're not new to Eloqua from that, but worked with Oracle on the support team and gonna walk us through one of the most it's a technical topic, but Kelly has done a great job. I will say I looked at the slides, putting together the material to help you guys wrap your head around what the heck is strict mode website visitor tracking and why I use it. So let me shush it. So Kelly, you can let them.
Thanks, Karen.
You
All
bet.
right, let me share my screen. All right, can we see that all right?
Looks good.
Okay, great. So yeah, we're going to be talking about what is and why to use Eloqua strict mode tracking. So what is strict mode tracking? It enables you to not track visitors from countries based on their IP address unless they've opted into tracking. So I've included a little screen capture here, and there's going to be a couple throughout the presentation that just show what the area looks like within Eloqua, because you may not have navigated there if you don't yet have this enabled, or you're considering enabling it for your instance. So this is where you're going to generate the visitor tracking scripts that you'll use in order for this to work. But first you would have to enable it, of course. And why would you want to do that? because strict mode helps you comply with the European Union's privacy tracking regulations. Member countries of the EU have legislation in place that requires marketer to receive explicit opt-in consent in order to be tracked online. And it's not only in the EU, of course, there's also, in addition to GDPR, there's CASL in Canada, lots and lots of limitations in that regard, and more, I'm sure, are coming down the pipeline. And of course, it's your responsibility to determine and set which tracking mode permission requests are in place for your web pages. We recommend any company with an international footprint to prioritize this if you don't already have it in place. And just to note, the last time I spoke on here, we talked about first-party cookies. So I just wanted to make sure to add that strict mode tracking functions properly and is fully supported when used alongside first-party cookies. So these things are kind of hand in hand. So there's 3 levels with strict mode tracking. You can do default, which tracks all visitors. Number 2 would be require opt-in for visitors by country. So you can create a restricted country list. And unless those visitors opt in for tracking with a permissions request, they wouldn't be included, or require opt-in for all visitors. So you don't track anyone unless they've opted in. The last one is very commonly used by hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, for websites that deal with PPI, personal private information, often things covered by HIPAA. You don't want to be collecting any information that you shouldn't unless it's relevant to your business or supporting the people that are in your database. Okay, and then if you did want to proceed and enable strict mode, you would need to create a service request with support, of course. And once that's in place, you're going to navigate through your instance following these steps here to generate the tracking package. At that point, you would need to click the restricted country list and choose the countries that are relevant. Once support confirms the completion, then you can actually generate the scripts themselves and work with your IT team to implement the opt-in banner or any other relevant tracking script changes on externally tracked pages. So Eloqua landing page strict mode configuration can be done on the relevant microsites, of course, by navigating specifically to those microsites, and then there you'll see the strict mode settings option. And then here I've just got a screen capture showing you the restricted country list area because it's not really called out very boldly. It's just right there, and it opens up this little pop-up for you, and you can add or remove countries here as needed. And then I just left this note here that's really important to keep in mind that if you choose no countries, no visitors will be tracked. So you got to have at least one in there. Otherwise, it's not going to work as expected. So the next couple of slides, I've got some code samples. These can also be found in the Eloqua Help Center or in my Oracle support in the knowledge base. These script samples are there to help you and your IT team work together to get those externally tracked pages set up. When using this code, Eloqua is going to track visitors from countries that are not on the country by IP restriction list and tracks visitors from restricted countries that have opted in for tracking. This one does the same thing as the previous, except it shows a sample default opt-in, opt-out banner that would appear at the top of the page. So, you know, if you visit a new website right now and you haven't opted in or out for their cookies, you would see that little pop-up. It's the same kind of thing that this code is going to help configure, and you can customize it. Of course, this is just an example. And then this one would be requiring opt-in for all visitors. So if you're using this code, Eloqua will exclude all visitors from tracking unless they've explicitly opted in. So thanks so much for your time on this. And I did have here that we were going to ask them if you had any questions, but we've got a lot of material to get through today. So please post any questions you have in the chat. I see 2 there right now. Nope, that's just you guys.
It's chitter
Cool.
chatter. Just girls
Q&A.
chatting over.
All right. If
Awesome.
any
Really
thoughts come up, yeah, go in there. Thanks.
appreciate you going through this. It was right to the point, and the screenshots are helpful. So I just want to show you guys live in our Eloqua instance. Let me see here. So if you want to know how you get to the website area, so if you're not an Eloqua admin, you wouldn't be able to see this. But if you are, you can go to the section where the assets are and then down to website setup and then tracking. Nothing like a live demo. How exciting. Where's she going to go next? I don't know. And then visitor tracking and visitor tracking package. And like Kelly said, following her instructions, you would do this not first, but second, after support has enabled strict mode.
Sorry to interrupt, Karen. We can't see your screen.
Oh, son of a gun. Okay, sorry, let me back up. Apologies, and then I'm gonna quickly get over to Lisa. So assets, website setup, tracking. You end up here, all this stuff. What do you click? Visitor tracking. It expands, and then you click visitor tracking package. And this is what you do after support enables strict mode tracking. It's not something that you can flip the switch on in your Eloqua to enable. Your consultant cannot do it, only Oracle support. So Kelly emphasized that we need to go to Oracle support, submit the service request, then come in here and get the new tracking code. Way down here on the bottom right, it's kind of hidden. You'd hit generate and get the updated JavaScript code that would be installed on your website and ideally on all pages. And it gives you instructions on how to install it. But there's also in the Help Center documentation. So we didn't want to go into too much more depth on this call for this topic. But hopefully that helps because there are a lot of Eloqua people that use Eloqua right now that don't know about this. So it does help if you're an international company and are trying to update your privacy practices, including your website to be compliant. So for instance, if you're international and you have people, especially in like Europe, that are visiting your website, you really got to be careful about automatically tracking them in Eloqua using Eloqua's tracking code. So anyway, thanks again, Kelly, for going through that. And if there are questions, again, please pop them in the Q&A. It looks like some came through or in the chat. Ideally the Q&A, because that's what it's there for, questions and answers. All right, and our next star for today is Lisa Milligan. I already mentioned earlier, she's one of our senior Eloqua consultants at Sojourn, based out of Dallas. She likes to ride horses. She's a cowgirl. I'm just kidding. Lisa's gonna walk us through how to check in your Eloqua if it's using, I have taken landing pages out of there, secure images and app links and why it's important. So Lisa, let me stop sharing so you can do your thing.
All righty, thank you, KP. Yes, and share my screen. Can everybody, hopefully you can hear me okay. This time I'm using my phone audio, Karen. So
Thank you. We can see your screen.
Yeah, you can see my screen. Karen and I have a running joke that sometimes when I use my computer audio, it sounds like I've fallen into a well.
Yeah.
So we don't want that today. All right, so this presentation is about securing your app and image links. And what does that mean exactly? So I'm going to, go between slides and also jumping into an Eloqua instance to make it more relevant, so you can also see where you would find these things in your Eloqua instance. So hopefully that helps and doesn't give you too much whiplash. But here we go. So what are branded app and image links, and how do we secure them? So think about when you're creating an Eloqua email, and within that email, you're going to likely insert links to a call to action, maybe something on your website, download, additional information, something of that nature. And then also in addition to that, you're going to have images in your emails. And when you insert those links to content, and when you insert those images, they are coded with a URL. And so what branded application and image links are allowing those to have your specific brand associated to them, and then also ensuring that they are secure. So having an HTTPS in front of that link. This slide denotes where those are used. So where branded application links are used in the following. View the email online. We all have the header at the top of the email, or traditionally we have the header at the top of the email where we say, if you'd like to view the online version, that's where an application link is used. For the email open tracking pixel, we were just talking about open, so that that invisible pixel that's in every Eloqua email is used there. A list of unsubscribed email headers, and then all system action links. So think about, the footer with the unsubscribe link, things of that nature. The branded image domains and links are used for links to static resources, of course, images in your image library, file content that you may upload, so PDFs, for example, and then all other uploaded documents that are found in the file storage area. So the next is just a quick visual of an email header, the read the online version, and then this may be a little bit difficult to see, so let me blow that up a little bit. And this is an example from an actual client instance. I did receive their permission to show this. So, we've got the friendly GUI version here of read the online version. And then if you take a peek at the actual source code under the cover here, you'll see that that is actually a link to a system action, and it does have the HTTPS and then a branded URL that then links to, the online version of that email. So the reason why that is important is because one, today, a lot of browsers are throwing security warnings if you don't have an HTTPS associated link. And then two, we want to have consistency between who we say that the email is from. So in this example, show me cables, and then what the underlying links and images in that email are associated with. So we don't want the old notation of an email coming from show me cables in this example, and the app and image links having an ELQ notation in them. So some of you may still have that. So in terms of the branded image link, same thing. If you traverse to your image library, pop open an image, and then take a look at the full image URL, this is showing you where, again, we've got the secure HTTPS link, and then we've got it branded, so it's associated to the sender of the email versus a more generic, ELQ.com type of notation. Okay, and so again, this is just kind of restating why it's important to secure your Eloqua app and image domains. Again, create that better customer experience, avoid browser issues and warnings, and then improve that email deliverability. So when we say the email is coming from, in this example, show me cables, everything associated to that email, the envelope information, the bounce back information, the app and image link information is all tied to that same brand. And that's certainly going to boost your deliverability in terms of consistency. So a couple bullet points here. This is a little more techie, but this is just talking about the first bullet point here about Eloqua securing those app and image domains using SSL. And then that data is encrypted, and when it's passed between the visitor's web browser and the web server, okay? So, and the reason for that is so that it cannot be intercepted by a third party, and again, avoid throwing those warnings that, that we don't want our email recipients to see, right? And then the next bullet point here is just talking about the branding packages that, are offered standard enterprise premium. You can create those secure branded application and image links instead of using the Eloqua defaults, which were mentioned earlier, that do not use your company's branding. There's more details there in the Help Center, and we're going to, walk through this a little bit more. So I included a section here on bounce back plus app and images. So when you're, setting up Eloqua, part of that is branding and deliverability, and that includes the bounce back configuration. So when somebody sends an email, if the email address is invalid, it's going to bounce back, and Eloqua is going to collect that information, right? And when we do that, we want to configure a subdomain that goes along with that. So here's an example again for Show Me Cables. This is what they have currently in their instance. They've got a default from, it's, specials at, and then they've got their subdomain go.showmecables.com. They've got a reply to, and then they've got a default bounce back, right? So there's consistency there between the subdomain for the envelope information that then also ties back into those app and image links that we were just talking about. So everything is branded the same, right? We've got app.go.showmecables.com, and we've got images.go.showmecables.com, and we've got our sender information that also matches to that, okay? And that's really what we want, right? We want everything to be consistent. Okay, so where to view these in Eloqua? So here's where I'm going to jump out and I'm going to go into the actual tool. And under assets and email setup, if you go to your email defaults, and let me make this just a little bit bigger, as they're getting old on me here. Everybody, obviously has this in their Eloqua instance, and you can go take
Hey,
a
Lisa?
quick peek. Yes.
Sorry to be that turd that talks over you. We are seeing the slide. I thought you think you're showing an Eloqua instance. I was getting so excited. You jumped to an Eloqua.
Here we go. I share my screen, but for some reason, maybe it was
There it
only
is.
sharing. Maybe it was only sharing the slides. So what I did was I went to assets, email setup, email defaults, and this is where I am now. This is the screen that I'm on. Okay, and again, everybody can go in and take a peek, see what's been configured in your specific instance, and see if maybe some adjustments or some changes need to be made. This is again just reviewing, default sender information, show me cables, the default from, the default reply to, and then this was the bounce back that's been configured. Okay. So in terms of, and let me switch back here, that's where you find that. All right, so the next thing is, one thing that you may notice as you scroll down here is we've got a lot of brands listed here, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But I wanted to scroll down here to where the app and image links are. So, the default, the little check mark here, shows you that these are the defaults that are configured. We've got our branded app, .go.showmecables, and our branded images, .go.showmecables. So everything there has been configured correctly, right? Again, you can check this in your own instance. Now, part of this configuration, though, does require that you have those links to be secure. So again, as we noted, an HTTPS denoting security versus an HTTP, in order to present that content as secure and to avoid browser-related warnings, okay? So when securing your app and image links, 2 certificates are suggested. So you'll have one for app, .yourbrandsubdomain.com. So in this case, app.go.showmecables.com. And then you'll have one for images, images.go.showmecables.com in this example. Now, for number 1, there are other subject alternative names that can be included in that certificate if needed. Or you can just have, if you don't have multiple brands maybe that you're securing, you can just include that one subject alternative name with that certificate. Now, with the images ones, you cannot. The certificate for that can only be for anything related to images. Okay, there can be no other subject alternative names. Now, I know that's kind of like, what does all that mean? There's more on the Oracle website about SSL certs, and then if you have specific questions, because it can be a little bit complicated to wrap your mind around the different certificates, what they cover, what the security portion of it means, how does this tie back to microsites? Should it tie back to microsites? There's a lot of questions around that, and I can appreciate that because I've done this a few times. So if you have questions, let us know either in the chat or we're happy to talk to you offline about that. Okay, so what we were just looking at on the screen in Eloqua is what's captured here. Eloqua does now allow you to have multi-brand configuration in one instance. So the client that we were just looking at in our example here, Show Me Cables, they're actually part of an umbrella group called Infinite Electronics, and under that umbrella, they have multiple brands. Their goal was to use one instance of Eloqua, but have communications sent out of that one instance of Eloqua for different brands. And one of the challenges with that is, well, how does that work then if we need to secure app and image links and make things look like they're coming from 1 to N different brands? And that's where this multi-brand configuration comes in, because it allows you to do that. So within this client's instance, they have all of these brands. Each brand has its own IP address assigned to it, which is wonderful, which, by the way, side note, does require IP warming per brand within a singular instance of Eloqua, which is totally possible. And then the other thing that it allows is it allows for the bounce back to be specific to brand, and it also allows for the application and image links to be specific to brand. So the way that works, and I'm going to jump back into Eloqua, is, you know, the question there being, well, how does Eloqua know, right? And so all you have to do is when you're creating an email is under the settings, if you choose a brand, right, we have a list here, Eloqua will automatically then switch those app and image links to be specific to that brand, along with the bounce back information. So just a great thing if, you know, you're working with multiple brands in your instance, and you're like, well, how do we manage all of that? And we don't want to have, you know, one-to-end different instances of Eloqua. You can certainly do it with this configuration, which was a great solution for this particular client and allows for them to have that consistency on branding across all of the different email communications that they're sending. So I feel like I went through that really fast, and it's hard when you don't get feedback. So AP, if there's any questions or anything that's come up in the chat, or if we want to table that, just let me know.
There aren't any yet. I'm guessing people are just like absorbing it because it is pretty techy. But I mean, I think the net from this, guys, is, and we are guilty at Sojourn, we do not have our image and app domains secured. We have been making this a high priority, escalating it internally to get it done ASAP. We highly encourage you, if it's not done, to, and I'm going to send all the slides for everybody's presentations in a follow-up email today. So you'll have Lisa's slides that walk you through how to go about this. But just know you're not alone. Oracle support can help guide you through it to a certain degree. You wouldn't like, so if you're an Eloqua user and you're like, wait, do I set up this SSL certificates? Do I go out and buy one? Like usually your IT team will help you to get this done. It's usually like not a marketer that does it alone, unless you work for like a company where you're kind of playing the IT role as well, which might be possible, but it typically is rare, hopefully. But even, you know, Kelly's presentation on strict mode website visitor tracking, if you don't have the keys to log into your content management system that controls your website, you wouldn't be able to implement the strict mode updated tracking code. So these are pretty techy topics, but we're trying to make sure that like hopefully can wrap your head around them. It may not apply to your organization and it might not be as exciting, but it's hopefully something you can just check and make sure, especially with Lisa, what she just went through, that you do have those secure image and app domains. A lot of people have them branded but not secure. And that basically just means that there's not the HTTP, the S, which stands for secure. It's just http://go.sojournsolutions.com. That's our problem today. And actually, let me share my screen. This is what you don't want to see. So when you go into, here we go, Eloqua, in our Eloqua instance, oh Lord, let me keep my brain straight. Ooh, there we go, defaults. So you can see we've got these, but they're not secure. So thankfully we branded them when we set up our Eloqua instance like 5 or so years ago, but we have not secured them yet. So anyway, we just are trying to look out for you guys, you know, have your back to make sure that, oops, I didn't want to stop sharing my screen. We want to make sure that these are just random things that we're finding with our customers are coming up. That's why we chose this topic. Plus, you know, some of the other things like the AutoOpens, we've had high demand from a lot of Eloqua users saying, can we talk more about that topic? If you have a topic, so speaking of which, if you have a topic that you'd like us to revisit or a topic we have not covered, please just let me know. I'll be happy to get it on our agenda. I know like Anne Marie, you requested a topic. Gosh, I think it was late last year and we covered it, I think in January or February. So I take it seriously. I don't just, you know, ask for feedback and then do nothing with it. I want you guys to know that it's taken to heart so we can cover what you need. And then also try to cover the topics that we are hearing a lot of our customers who use Eloqua ask us about or having an issue with. Thank you, Lisa, for your picture where you're wearing a greenish color for St. Patrick's Day. How appropriate. Presenting.
No
And
problem.
no, let me see here. What time is it? 11:52. We have 8 minutes. We're not going to sit here for 8 minutes if we don't need to, but let me look and see, is anybody anyone want to ask a question or share a tip? If you do, raise your hand. Oops, there are 2 people raising their hands. Oh, it's me and Kelly. Somehow we hit the raise your hand button. So I don't know,
Yeah.
Kelly, a question?
I have a tip.
Oh, awesome. Perfect.
Yeah. Just following up on what Lisa was saying about the secure app and image, just really, really important to note 2 things. One, do not buy a certificate until you open the SR. Just wait for support to guide you on that, because you may end up having to buy it again. So just to save you some money. And the second thing is to make sure that these are done simultaneously, because it can cause breakage in your instance if they're not done at the same time in the same SR. You cannot, they'll let you secure an app domain or just an image domain, but it can cause breakage if you don't do them both together. So please, please, please do them at the same time.
Perfect. That's a good tip. I know, Kelly, you're sharing that because we have seen various times where people will buy the certificate. They'll be like, okay, I got this. They read the Eloqua Help Center. They send it to their IT person. That person reads it, goes out and buys the cert, and then somebody logs the service request with Oracle support, and then it's not the right certificate. And you never want to spend money you don't need to spend and then have to go buy something else anyway. So
well, yeah, especially because in this case for the images domain specifically, you have to do the Akamai workbook, which means the supports operations team will generate the CSR for you, and you have to use that to purchase the cert. That's the big piece of the puzzle. So don't buy it.
It's like this is tricky, but so it's one of those things where I'm like, can it be easier? It's not yet, guys. I mean, this is the reality, and this is how it works for other marketing automation platforms as well. It's not like Oracle's trying to be difficult doing this stuff with Eloqua. It is techy and it's very sequential with what to do when, but once it's done, you don't typically have to touch it again, unless your company rebrands and no longer uses the same name, like company name or brands. But anyway, any other questions or tips? I don't see any other hand raisers.
Oh, yeah. Just a quick tip that I think somebody made in the chat as well is that, yes, you will have to renew certificates depending on, what time frame they were purchased for. So every year or every 2 years, those certificates will need to be renewed. But, once you've laid that groundwork, it's pretty easy just to do that going forward each year. One other thing or tip I wanted to recommend, Karen, I don't know if you still have your Eloqua window open, but if people need a quick way to check, you can just navigate to the images library in your Eloqua instance, for example, and see if your, just open any image and see if it has an HTTPS in front of it. And if it doesn't, then okay, we have some legwork to do here to get that. So here you'll see, http images.info.sojournsolutions.com, for example. So that's a quick visual way to check, because sometimes you don't know. You're like, well, I'm a new admin to this tool and somebody else set this up before me and I'm not really sure what they did, type of thing. Or if your instance has been around for several years and maybe things were done long ago, like they were for our instance, but not secured, this is a way to double check that.
Yep. And this is ironic. I pulled up an image that Lisa, you loaded to our Eloqua like 4 years ago. So, and just to reiterate, like if you were part of your Eloqua implementation 5 years ago and you're just seeing now you guys didn't do this, don't beat yourselves up. This is so common that people don't do this sometimes in implementation. It's not like one of the most common things that everybody knows to do. It's like, I'm kind of reiterating, it's pretty in the weeds, technically speaking. And there are some good consultants out there who don't even get training on this. So anyway, and some of the process has evolved with Oracle and how to do it with Eloqua. So thankfully, Kelly and Lisa here are reiterating things like make sure you log the SR before you buy the SSL certificate. But those are not things that everybody knows that's been doing this for a while. So hopefully we're hitting home on this one. So I think we're going to wrap it up, guys. We've got 3 minutes left. Just want to thank you guys for joining again. We actually have like less than 30 people here of the 150 that registered. That is very likely because, like Kelly pointed out to me, spring break, but also because I did the wrong confirmation email link. So the hour in like 3 minutes, people are going to probably start to en masses join this Zoom. So I will be sending them the recording and apologize for the mix up. But anyway, we'll get together again Thursday, April 21st. We try to always do this as best as possible, the third Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So I will send out the invite. We have some topics already for the agenda, but we will lock those down to make sure everybody's good to go. And I will include the agenda items in the invite and also update the registration page with those probably in the next couple of days. So if you have any topic ideas or anything to make this user group meeting better, any feedback for me, for the presenters, for the format, how we run it, for when we run it, how long we run it, anything. I check in once a year and do a poll, but know that we're always open to feedback. So with that, I want to thank you all again for being here and hope you have a great rest of your day. If you do happen to go out anywhere for St. Patrick's Day, please enjoy, be safe. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Toodaloo.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies, for presenting. Bye, everyone.
Bye.